The bikers arrived without warning, a ragtag group of individuals who had exploited the chaos to expand their territory. Their loud, aggressive approach was a stark contrast to the quiet, controlled environment the survivors had tried to maintain. The gang, led by a charismatic but ruthless leader named Hawk, saw the mall not just as a safe haven but as a prize to be seized. The first signs of trouble came when the survivors heard the roar of motorcycle engines echoing through the mall's once abandoned corridors. The noise was jarring and alarming, and it quickly became apparent that the mall's security system, once a symbol of their control, was inadequate against such a large and determined group. The biker gang was composed of various individuals, each with their own agendas and skills. Hawk, the leader, was a former outlaw who thrived on chaos and control. His imposing presence and strategic mind made him a formidable adversary. His second-in-command, a rough-and-tumble woman named Roxy, was known for her brutal efficiency and knack for intimidation. The rest of the gang was a mix of scavengers, fighters, and opportunists. They were heavily armed, with a variety of weapons ranging from handguns to makeshift melee weapons. Their primary goal was to take over the mall, which they saw as a potential stronghold and a means to further their dominance in the post-apocalyptic world. Once the threat was identified, Stephen took immediate action. His leadership became crucial as he rallied the group and organized their defense. The mall's vast layout provided both advantages and challenges. The survivors needed to fortify key entry points, secure critical areas, and plan a strategy that would allow them to repel the bikers while minimizing casualties. Stephen, drawing on his experience in crisis management, began to coordinate the group's efforts. He assigned roles based on each member's strengths. Francine was tasked with overseeing the morale and communication aspects, ensuring that everyone was aware of their responsibilities and maintaining a sense of unity. Peter and Roger, despite Roger's declining health, focused on fortifying the mall's defenses. They used their knowledge of the mall's layout to identify vulnerable points and established barricades at strategic locations. The pair worked tirelessly to set up traps and defensive positions, utilizing whatever resources were available. The bikers, led by Hawk and Roxy, initiated their assault with a blend of intimidation and aggression. They used their motorcycles to block key exits and entrances, creating a siege-like scenario. The roar of engines and the threat of violence created an atmosphere of tension and fear among the survivors. The initial confrontation was marked by a series of skirmishes. The bikers attempted to breach the mall's defenses by force, using explosive devices and heavy firepower to break through barricades. The survivors responded with a mix of improvised weapons and strategic counterattacks. Stephen's authoritarian leadership was put to the test as he made difficult decisions under pressure. His strategies were aimed at repelling the bikers while minimizing the risk to his group. His insistence on maintaining control and directing every aspect of the defense created friction among the survivors, particularly with Peter, who had reservations about Stephen's approach. As the battle raged on, the mall became a chaotic battleground. The survivors faced not only the physical threat of the bikers but also the psychological strain of constant danger. The once familiar spaces of the mall, now transformed into defensive fortifications and makeshift barricades, became the sites of intense combat. The bikers, emboldened by their numbers and firepower, pressed their advantage. Hawk and Roxy led the charge, coordinating attacks and exploiting any weaknesses they found in the survivors' defenses. The survivors fought back with desperation and determination, using every resource at their disposal to hold their ground. The confrontation reached its peak as the survivors and bikers clashed in close quarters. The mall's corridors echoed with the sounds of gunfire, shouting, and the occasional explosion. The survivors' defensive positions were put to the ultimate test, and the battle became a brutal, bloody struggle for survival. Amidst the chaos, personal struggles and sacrifices came to the forefront. Roger's declining health was a constant concern, and his involvement in the fight was limited by his condition. Despite his weakened state, he continued to contribute to the defense, offering strategic insights and encouragement to his comrades. Peter, grappling with his own frustrations and the strain of leadership, found himself at odds with Stephen's increasingly rigid tactics. The tension between the two reached a breaking point as their disagreements over strategy became more pronounced. Despite their differences, Peter's tactical skills and experience were crucial in countering the bikers' attacks. Francine's role in maintaining morale and providing support became increasingly challenging. She worked tirelessly to keep the group focused and motivated, despite the mounting pressures and personal losses. Her efforts were vital in keeping the survivors united and determined in the face of overwhelming odds. As the battle wore on, the survivors began to gain the upper hand. Their strategic planning and fortifications, combined with their determination and resourcefulness, allowed them to push back against the bikers. The key to their success lay in their ability to adapt and respond to the changing dynamics of the battle. Stephen's leadership, despite its authoritarian nature, proved effective in rallying the group and maintaining focus. His decisions, though often contentious, were aimed at maximizing their chances of survival. The survivors' resilience and unity ultimately turned the tide in their favor. The bikers, realizing that their assault was failing, began to retreat. Hawk and Roxy, recognizing the shifting balance of power, decided to cut their losses and withdraw. The mall, once a battleground, was left scarred but still standing. The survivors, battered but victorious, faced the aftermath of the battle with a mix of relief and exhaustion. The aftermath of the battle left the survivors with a profound sense of both victory and loss. The mall, though still a refuge, bore the marks of the fierce confrontation. The survivors faced the task of repairing their defenses and dealing with the casualties and damage inflicted during the battle. Stephen's leadership was both praised and criticized. His ability to organize and direct the defense was instrumental in their victory, but his authoritarian approach had created significant friction within the group. The survivors had to confront the consequences of their internal conflicts and the impact of Stephen's decisions on their unity. Peter and Francine, both deeply affected by the battle, faced their own challenges in rebuilding and recovery. The strain of the conflict had taken a toll on their relationships, and the process of healing and moving forward would require time and effort. Roger's condition remained a somber reminder of the ongoing dangers they faced. Despite their victory over the bikers, the threat of his transformation and the emotional toll of his impending fate weighed heavily on the group. By the end of this chapter, the survivors had endured a major external threat and emerged victorious, but at a significant cost. The battle with the biker gang had tested their resolve and highlighted both the strengths and weaknesses of their group. The victory came with a heavy price, and the survivors faced the difficult task of rebuilding and reflecting on their experiences. The external threats they faced underscored the fragility of their existence and the ongoing challenges of surviving in a world overrun by both the undead and human adversaries. As they continued to navigate their new reality, the lessons learned from the battle and the internal conflicts would shape their future decisions and interactions. The immediate aftermath of the battle with the biker gang was marked by a somber atmosphere. Roger's condition had worsened rapidly after the fight. Despite the group's best efforts to provide him with medical care and comfort, the bite wound had become increasingly infected. The inevitability of his transformation into a zombie loomed over the group, casting a long shadow over their efforts to rebuild and recover. Roger's decline was a painful process. His once vibrant and authoritative presence was replaced by a weakened and increasingly incoherent state. The group, particularly Peter, struggled with the emotional weight of watching a valued member of their team deteriorate. The contrast between Roger's former strength and his current vulnerability served as a stark reminder of the fragility of their situation. As Roger's condition became critical, the group faced the grim reality that his death was imminent. The psychological strain of waiting for the inevitable was compounded by the need to prepare for the aftermath. The survivors had to grapple with the harsh reality that Roger's transformation into one of the undead was not just a possibility but an impending certainty. The moment of Roger's death was a somber affair. He passed away quietly, his breathing slowing until it ceased. The group, already emotionally drained, now faced the horror of Roger's reanimation. His transformation into a zombie was both a physical and emotional ordeal. The process was marked by an unsettling silence, followed by the unmistakable signs of reanimation. Peter was left with the agonizing task of confronting his former partner in his new, undead state. The emotional weight of the situation was overwhelming. Peter had to confront the reality that the friend and ally he had fought beside was now a threat to their survival. The act of killing Roger was both a necessity and a profound act of personal sacrifice. The death and reanimation of Roger left the group in a state of profound despair. The emotional impact of the loss was compounded by the realization that their struggle for survival was far from over. The survivors were faced with the harsh truth that their situation was not improving but instead becoming increasingly dire. Francine's despair was evident in her interactions with the group. The weight of their losses and the bleakness of their future began to take a toll on her ability to maintain morale. Her attempts to provide support and encouragement became increasingly strained as the reality of their situation set in. Francine's sense of hopelessness was exacerbated by the ongoing threats and challenges they faced. The mall, once a symbol of refuge and safety, now seemed like a prison. The internal conflicts and external dangers created a sense of confinement and inevitability. The survivors were trapped in a cycle of struggle and loss, with little hope for a positive resolution. The psychological impact of their situation was profound. The group's sense of security had been shattered, and their emotional reserves were depleted. The constant pressure of surviving in a world overrun by zombies, combined with the internal conflicts and personal losses, created a sense of bleakness that was difficult to overcome. Francine's expressions of despair were not just about the immediate loss of Roger but also about the overall sense of hopelessness that permeated their existence. The survivors faced a future that seemed increasingly grim, with little indication of relief or resolution. The weight of their circumstances was a constant burden, and the emotional toll was reflected in their interactions and daily routines. The survivors, reeling from Roger's death and the growing sense of despair, struggled to find a way forward. Stephen's leadership, while still authoritative, faced new challenges as he tried to navigate the emotional landscape of the group. His attempts to maintain control and focus on survival were complicated by the growing sense of hopelessness among the survivors. Peter, grappling with his grief and frustration, found it difficult to engage in the group's efforts to rebuild and recover. His relationship with Stephen became increasingly strained, as their differing approaches to leadership and survival created tension. The emotional weight of Roger's death added to Peter's internal struggles, making it difficult for him to effectively contribute to the group's efforts. Francine's role in maintaining morale became even more critical as the group faced new challenges. Despite her own feelings of despair, she continued to support and encourage the survivors. Her efforts to provide a sense of normalcy and hope were crucial in keeping the group united, even as the future seemed increasingly uncertain. The survivors faced the challenge of moving forward in the face of their losses and the ongoing threats they faced. The mall, while still a refuge, was now a place marked by the emotional scars of their struggles. The sense of security that had once defined their existence was replaced by a constant awareness of the dangers that lurked both inside and outside the mall. The future of the group seemed bleak. The combination of internal conflicts, personal losses, and external threats created a sense of inevitability and despair. The survivors were left to confront the reality that their struggle for survival was ongoing and that the challenges they faced were far from over. Despite the sense of hopelessness that pervaded their existence, the survivors continued to fight for their survival. The resilience and determination that had carried them through previous challenges remained a crucial factor in their ability to persevere. The ongoing struggle for survival was marked by moments of despair and hopelessness, but also by the unyielding drive to keep moving forward. By the end of this chapter, the survivors were left grappling with the profound impact of their losses and the bleakness of their future. Roger's death and reanimation as a zombie served as a harsh reminder of the fragility of their situation. The internal conflicts and personal struggles continued to shape their daily lives, and a sense of hopelessness created a challenging environment for their survival. Francine's expressions of despair highlighted the emotional toll of their situation, while Stephen's leadership faced new challenges in navigating the group's grief and hopelessness. Peter's struggles with his grief and frustration underscored the complexities of their interpersonal dynamics. The survivors' continued fight for survival was marked by both despair and determination. As they faced the harsh realities of their existence, their resilience and ability to persevere remained crucial in navigating the ongoing challenges of their world. The chapter served as a poignant reminder of the emotional and psychological impact of their situation, and the unyielding struggle to maintain hope amidst the bleakness of their reality.